Conservative radio star Rush Limbaugh apologizing this weekend for his offensive description of a Georgetown law student who testified before Congress on contraception. The apology was immediately touted as a badge of honor by some on the left, but now one top liberal commentator, Kirsten Powers, suggesting that some of Limbaugh's loudest critics might want to look in the mirror. Ms. Powers is with me now. She's a columnist for thedailybeast.com and a Fox News contributor. Kirsten, welcome.
Hello, Megan.
So this is interesting because this is, it started as something about religious liberty versus contraception, and it's morphed into something very different now about whether, in your piece, you raise the question about whether there's a double standard when it comes to calling out conservatives who say the wrong things, offensive things, and liberals who do the same.
Yeah. Look, I said in my column that I think what Rush Limbaugh said was extremely egregious. It's something that I think he deserves, the outpouring of anger about, that the boycott, everything. I support all that, but at the same time, if you're going to get so upset about him using this term, which I'm not going to use on television,
it's the S word. It starts with S.
Yes.
SL and it ends with T. We'll leave it at that.
Yes, thank you. Then you have to get upset when somebody like Bill Maher, who is a major donor to President Obama's super PAC, he gave him $1 million, and someone who liberals go on his show all the time. Top liberals go on. I mean, Jennifer Granholm was just on his show. Russ Feingold was just on his show. And so if you have all these liberals coming out and now saying Rush Limbaugh needs to be taken off the air for saying stuff like this, then it doesn't make sense that somebody like Bill Maher is able to go ahead and not only just stay on, but still have all these top Democrats and top liberals come on like nothing's going on, like it's no problem.
You call him, Bill Maher, the grand poobah of media misogyny. And the examples you list in your piece are really epic. I mean, he called Sarah Palin a dumb TW blank T.
Exactly.
He called her the C word.
Yeah.
He called Sarah Palin and Congresswoman Bachmann boobs and two bimbos.
Yeah.
And on it goes. And I thought it was interesting because you point out how none other than Gloria Steinem goes on his show and doesn't confront him about it. But who did?
Yeah, Ann Coulter. The big feminist, Ann Coulter. So, I think, the thing is that it's hard to even repeat the things that he says on television, right? Because they're so outrageous. And what's been particularly upsetting to me, Megan, has been the response that I've gotten, which is to this article, which is, oh, it's so different. It's okay to call Sarah Palin all those words because she's a public person. But this other woman who was in front of the, hearing on the contraception, she's a private person. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's okay to call somebody the C word if they're a public person? When did that happen? People start calling Nancy Pelosi that, everyone would just go, oh, well, she's a public person. Oh, wow. It's not okay. And Bill Maher has attacked a woman who was a private citizen who was involved in a case because she was breastfeeding and she was sort of harassed about it. And he said all sorts of horrible things about this woman.
He's come out and said, well, it's different because I don't have sponsors. But a lot of the men you list in your article as some of the worst offenders do have sponsors. And they do seem to get a pass when they say things that are not just offensive, but, hurtful. There's like a presumption that some of these women don't have any feelings. From Sandra Fluke on down, including Sarah Palin. She runs for office, she doesn't have feelings. And you went through Ed Schultz, who called Sarah Palin a bimbo and called Laura Ingraham a right-wing SL. Same thing, same term, SL, you know what.
Right.
Now, he later was forced to apologize, but is he being boycotted? Keith Olbermann, you talk about some of the things he has said, Kirsten.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's the point. Then the other thing is, oh, well, he apologized, so it's okay. And my response to that is really, if somebody dropped the N-word, could they just apologize and get out of it? I don't understand why these very specific, gender-specific attacks on women are okay. It's fine to attack a woman. Look, we're all grown-ups. Go ahead and, call us stupid or whatever you want. But the point is, why do they have to choose these very gender-specific names that they know are particularly nasty towards women?
Why do you think, just on the Olbermann front, he said S.E. Cupp should have been aborted by her parents. He said Michelle Malkin is a mashed-up bag of meat with lipstick. And where was the outrage, Kirsten? I mean, why do they get away with it when somebody like Rush does not?
Because this isn't really about misogyny, Megan. This is about the Democratic Party, and that's what it always comes down to. It's a proxy war for the Democratic Party. They can use it for the election, for part of the war on women, and they can attack Rush Limbaugh because they hate Rush Limbaugh because he's conservative. It has nothing to do with misogyny or sexism or anything like that, because if it did, they would flip out over Ed Schultz over Matt Taibbi at Rolling Stone, who said stuff that literally you cannot repeat on the air. I mean, it's so disgusting, and he's done so much more than I even included in the article. Karen Tumulty at Washington Post has a piece up right now about the horrible things that he has said about her. So look, they overlook it because they're liberal, and liberal men are allowed to be misogynists, apparently. I don't know.
You don't think they're genuinely offended then? They're not genuinely offended by Rush, and they're not offended when they hear Bill Maher say these things, but they see an opportunity when a conservative does it.
Yeah, they see an opportunity. It's not that they're not offended. I do think they actually probably find it offensive. I can't imagine how you would read most of this stuff to somebody and they would say it's not offensive. My point in the article was, okay, if you're offended, then do something about it. You can't only do it when it's a conservative. You can't just sit there quietly. Well, Chris Matthews does really serious damage to Hillary Clinton. The first woman, presidential candidate who has a chance of winning an election is just denigrated and torn apart just in the most vicious, sexist terms by him over and over. And then he kind of gives this lame apology like 7 months later, 8 months later, after he's already done all the damage, and then turns around and starts doing it all over again. So it's the point is, if you're really upset about it, do something about it. And for Bill Maher, okay, he doesn't have sponsors. Just don't go on a show. I mean, it's very simple. If it's so horrible to call somebody an SLUT, then it's got to be bad to call them the C word, right, Megan?
Well,
does that make sense?
I mean, I have to say, on Bill Maher's show, he had a less than kind word for me at one point, and Jane Herman, a Democrat who was sitting there, put him in his place. Gloria Steinem is sitting on the couch, not so much. I think that's very interesting. Kirsten, thank you so much for coming on with your insights.